בוא, אורי. קיץ עכשיו, אין חלזונות. אורי.
לפעמים יש.
רוצ'קו, אנחנו נוסעים. ככה אתה בא?
מי אמר שאני בא? אני מכיר את המקומות האלה. זה לאנשים שאין מי שיטפל בהם.
מי יטפל בו? 2.5 מדריכים שמתחלפים שם כל שנה?
אהרון, אני לא מתכוונת לנהל את השיחה הזאת עוד פעם.
טוב לו פה.
אורי! אורי! הלו, תמרה.
איפה אתם?
אורי, הוא פשוט...
אהרון.
צריך עוד זמן.
אני לא מוכנה לזה, יש צו מבית משפט, ואני לא מתכוונת לוותר לך יותר. אהרון. אהרון.
כרטיס אשראי שלך וחתימה שלך כאן.
מה אם אני פשוט אשלם במזומן?
מי שאתה עושה את זה? אני לא מוכנה לעשות את זה ככה, אתה שומע אותי?
כבר עזבת את הכל, אתה כבר היית שם. משכורת של $90,000 בשנה אתה זרקת לפח.
מה זה שייך?
מה זה שייך? שייך! כל פעם שמשהו לא מצליח. אתה חותך, אתה קם ואתה הולך.
אורי מקסים, ורואים שאתה אבא מסור. והוא כבר לא ילד.
Good evening, everybody. So happy to see you here tonight. My name is Sandra Brett. I am the director of the Charleston Jewish Film Festival, and this is Sunny Neighbor. Sunny?
Hello from Savannah.
Sunny is the Savannah Jewish Federation Community Impact Coordinator, and we give you a very warm welcome to tonight's program. We do hope that you will join us for our remaining films in this virtual Spring 2021 series. The details are on the Charleston Jewish Film Fest Facebook page, or you can always email Sunny or me, and I will put our email addresses in the chat as soon as I am done welcoming you all here. So this year, our virtual film festival is a joint effort between Charleston and Savannah. And in Charleston, we are under the umbrella of the College of Charleston Yaschik Arnold Jewish Studies program with very generous funding from the Charleston JCC Foundation. And in Savannah, with generous funding from the Savannah's Friends of the Festival. Many thanks to all of our sponsors and donors, and thanks to all of you for participating in tonight's film discussion featuring Here We Are. Tonight's program will provide some valuable insight into the film Here We Are. Our moderator, Sara Sharnoff Tick, will begin by giving us an intro into the history of the term autism. We will continue with a short clip from the director of the movie, Nir Bergman, who is quite famous in Israel, followed by remarks by two parents, Craig Browdy and Yaron Ayalon. And finally, we welcome your comments, questions, and thoughts about the movie. Please type your questions at any time into the chat, and we'll call on you to ask your question. The chat is on the bottom of the screen, and all you have to do is click on it. And now I'm very honored to introduce our moderator tonight, Sara Sharnoff Tick. Sara was born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina. She has a Master's of Science in Family Therapy from the University of Massachusetts in Boston. After working at an adolescent outpatient eating disorder clinic in Waltham, Mass., she moved to Charleston. She has worked as the director of the Charleston Jewish Family Services at the Charleston Jewish Federation for the past 8 years. Starting in January 2021, she became the executive director of the newly named Jewish Family Services of Greater Charleston, which is now a separate organization. Under her leadership, JFS has expanded to include a full-time director of senior outreach and case management, as well as a part-time Jewish community chaplain, Rabbi Aaron Sherman. We're very lucky to have Sara here in Charleston and with us tonight. So Sara, would you like to get started?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you so much, Sandra, and for everyone for putting on this wonderful program. I'm very, very happy to participate, and I really enjoyed the film, so I'm very much looking forward to our discussion. So just to get started, I thought I would do a very quick overview all about autism spectrum disorder so we can have a better understanding about our main character, Uri. Again, we could probably talk about this for hours, so I will keep it as brief as I can, just so we can all sort of speak the same language. So the word autism actually comes from the Greek word autos, which means self, and it was first used in 1911 by the Swiss psychiatrist Eugen Bleuler. And autism used to be linked to the diagnosis of schizophrenia up until the 1960s. And behavioral therapy wasn't really utilized as a treatment for ASD until the 1980s. So today it's called the Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD, and that's how it's categorized in the DSM. So what is autism spectrum disorder? It is a neurodevelopmental disorder that occurs within the first 3 years of life. And the symptoms usually fall into 3 different categories for diagnosis. And that includes language and communication, social interactions, and unusual behaviors. So for the language and communication, you would see a neurotypical child, which would mean a person who does not have the ASD diagnosis. Usually around 3 months of age, that baby would be cooing, usually babbling a bit by 6 months of age, and usually around a year, saying simple words and looking like mama and dada. So if for some reason a pediatrician did not see a baby meet these milestones, they might be starting to see if ASD might end up being something that this child will be diagnosed with later on in life. In terms of social interactions, a child might be a little confused or not understanding social boundaries, so that can look different in different children. For some, it might be talking too closely, maybe coming into someone's personal space, or hugging frequently, which at age 3, might not necessarily raise any flags, but as a child gets older and is still engaging in those behaviors, that might be something that's happening. And on the reverse of it, it could be a child who's very aloof, who doesn't make eye contact. So again, it looks different in all children. And with the behaviors, you might see things such as repetitive behaviors like hand flapping, repetitive opening and shutting of doors, or even repetition of speech, sometimes imitating a phrase or something that someone else has said over and over again. And there might be some obsessions of specific interests or hobbies that is carried on from childhood and stays pretty consistent throughout their young adult and adult life. So autism, it's a lifelong disorder, but with proper treatment, people can reach their own individual maximum potential. So when it comes to looking at the prevalence of autism, in 2020, the CDC reported approximately 1 in 54 children in the United States are diagnosed with ASD. And that breaks down to 1 in 34 boys and 1 in 144 girls. Most children are diagnosed after the age of 4, but like we talked about earlier, there might be some symptoms or some signs earlier than the age of 4. And autism can affect all ethnic and socioeconomic groups. So what causes autism? There isn't one specific cause, but research does indicate that genetics are involved in the majority of cases. There are some risk factors, such as having a low birth rate or being born preterm, or if there's drug exposure in utero, there might also be an increased risk. And children born to older parents also have a higher risk for having ASD, but vaccinations do not cause autism. So as far as interventions and supports, there's no cure for autism because it's not a disease, it's a disorder. And early intervention really gives people the best opportunity to have healthy development and delivers benefits throughout a person's entire lifespan. All of the treatment is highly individualized, and early intervention can improve learning, communication, and social skills. ABA, which stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, is the most researched and most commonly used behavioral intervention for children with ASD. And a lot of children also engage in occupational and speech therapy. So what are some of the challenges associated with ASD? An estimated 40% of people with ASD are nonverbal. Nearly half of those with autism wander or can bolt from safety. And nearly 2/3 of children with autism between the ages of 6 and 15 have been bullied. And there's also some things for the caregivers and the families of children with ASD. One of the biggest challenges is the cost. So ASD costs approximately $60,000 a year through childhood, and that cost increases with the occurrence of intellectual disabilities. So that number is based off of parents' lost wages, combined with the cost of special services that a child might need. There are some famous people with ASD that I wanted to share. Dan Aykroyd from Ghostbusters was diagnosed in the early 80s. Susan Boyle from Britain's Got Talent. And the actress Daryl Hannah, she was diagnosed as a child. So that's very, very brief overview. And we'd certainly love to hear more information about that. And I have resources for anyone who's interested in just more of the science side of this. But for now, we are going to watch a clip from the film's director, Nir Bergman, and he talks about casting the film and crafting the character of Uri. And after that, we're going to follow it up with two of our local parents of children with ASD who are going to share their personal experiences and their reactions to the film.
How was your preparation for Here We Are?
Well, you got to go through a lot of research as well, because it's not enough to understand. It's not enough to understand, what is autism. You have to understand specifically who is the character that you are building for this film. Who is Uri, the hero? And so we went through a lot of places, special places for people with special needs. I mean, when I say we, I mean myself and Noam, the cast for Uri, the boy. Noam came with a lot of knowledge that he had from home, because his father was a manager of a place for autistic children. And so Noam grew up with autistic kids around him. Eventually what happened is that when we were touring, when we were location touring in Eilat, suddenly I saw the film in front of my eyes. There was a single mom with her son. He was a teenage, and he looked completely normal. And then he started to do things, and I looked at him and I understood the whole story. And the manager, the production managers said, "Come on, let's go." We were in Eilat, it's the south of Israel. You got to finish locations and go back home. 4 hours drive back to Tel Aviv. We had to go back, and I couldn't go. I was just looking at these, and I really saw the story of two people lost in Eilat. And finally, I asked. I couldn't go myself. I was, I don't know, maybe too embarrassed, and I asked for the art director. Maybe she could approach them, because she was with me watching them, understanding that the story is happening in front of her eyes, and she reached for them, and they became like the inspiration for Uri. We met them again and again. We became closer. Noam and me came there again and again, and the mother corresponded very strongly, and she could relate to the screenplay very strong. And of course, she knew the Dana Idis's theory about the people that is called On the Spectrum. So she was really she wanted to help, and we are still in touch with the boy, and they're going to come to see the film.
Thank you. Craig, if you want to unmute, love to hear your story. Craig Browdy.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. First of all, I guess I should explain the background a little bit. Sylvia's been asking me to clean up my office for the last 6 months, and unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to, so hence the background. Our story with, I guess, Alon started on September 8th, 2001. And that's when Alon was born here in Charleston. And 3 days later, as we were watching the towers come down, the doctor came into the office with a look on the face that we were, knew that there was some sort of a concern. And the doctor basically said, we think it's very important that you go to a consult with our geneticist and talk to them about your son that was just born 3 days before. And the doctor did a lot of analyses on Alon and checked him. And even at young age, he was able to diagnose Alon with a very uncommon and unique genetic syndrome. So what do you do? I mean, it's was clearly the most shocking day in our lives in a long time. And you don't. The doctor said to us, the first thing he said was, I bet you don't want to know, what this means, what's going to happen, how he's going to be, how he's going to behave, whether he'll ever be able to go to school, whether he'll be able to get married, whether he'll be able to have children one day, a career. And he said, the short answer is, I don't know. I can't tell you any of those answers whatsoever. He said, no one can answer that. And that sort of began the journey that we've been on, discovering the answers from life. And it's only a few years later, when he was about 4 years old, that or 5, he was diagnosed with autism. And that started us learning about autism and understanding it. Unfortunately, the later you're diagnosed, the earlier you're diagnosed, the better the opportunities with ABA therapy. And but although you have the diagnosis of autism, which is incidentally very important for getting services and from the state, things like that, it really, again, does not really tell you much about what's going to happen, what's going to be. Someone told me once, if you've met one child with autism, then you've met one child with autism. And the next child you meet with autism is going to be completely different. It's a incredibly wide spectrum. And so again, you really don't know what's going to happen. But I feel incredibly fortunate. I feel like Alon is an amazing part of our life. He's an amazing kid. To know Alon is to love Alon. And the more you know him, the more you love him. He is somebody who doesn't have a nasty bone in his body, and is never been nasty to anyone ever. He's one of the sweetest kids you'll ever know. And any challenge that Alon has had in front of him, I think that he's been able to, by hard work and by perseverance, be able to overcome the challenges and achieve them. He's very, I think, very high functioning. Sometimes I figure, that doesn't even need to be diagnosed as anything, because he is who he is and he's great. And Alon, in general, as through his development, has been about 2 years behind where most of his peers are, but eventually gets there and catches up and keeps things going. He really is able to rise to challenges. He started out at Addlestone Hebrew Academy with a shadow, and then we moved where there's more services to the public school system, and he became mainstreamed in classes, graduated from elementary school on time, graduated from junior high school on time, and last May, graduated from West Ashley High School with actually completed a cord in engineering at West Ashley High School. And this was incredibly difficult. I mean, he at a late age couldn't add together the numbers on 2 dice. And it's all been a lot of hard work and a lot of help and a lot of tutoring, and Alon's done great. Right now, he's in Israel on the Nativ program from the conservative Jewish movement, USY and Camp Ramah kids. A lot of them go on Nativ, and they have a special program within Nativ called Yozma, which is for kids on the spectrum. And Alon was accepted into that program. Right now, he's in Carmiel in an absorption center, volunteering in a thrift shop and in the maintenance shop of the absorption center. Finished courses in Hebrew University in the fall, and he's done great things. And the movie, if I can just a couple seconds about the movie and how that sort of relates. Tzivia and I are very different from those parents. There's I think that in our case, Tzivia is a little bit the more protective one, and I'm the more, push him out there and get him to do things. And the Nativ program is an example of that. When he first started high school, we found out about Yozma, and I started looking into it, suggesting the possibility of doing it, and rather than, sort of like the way the movie makes it seem like he was immediately pushed into this school. We looked at it over time and got used to the idea. We went to Israel 3 years before he graduated and visited the school and got to meet the people and talk to other students, and everybody kind of got behind the idea, and to the point where when Alon went, he was very excited about it. But of course, this uncertainty and the unknowing that the father personifies so well about, the fears of how will we be treated and how will things go, are always there. It's part of, from that first day with the geneticist. You don't know what's going to happen, and you just try to prepare them as best you can, and give them all the opportunities that you can, and hopefully they will rise to the occasion.
Thank you so much. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has goosebumps after hearing your story. It was beautifully said. So thank you for sharing. And I'm sure we'll have more questions for you. But I do want to pass it over to Yaron. Yaron Ayalon.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I tonight am speaking here finally not in my usual official capacity in which I usually appear in those events, is the director of Jewish Studies at the college. Tonight, I'm just here as a parent. And I was very happy when Sandra asked me to do this. This is, for me, an issue I have. I know some parents don't like to talk too much about this. I never had an issue with it. So first I'll say, when I look at when I watched the movie, as a movie, I thought it was a great movie. It really is beautifully done. I didn't really think this movie was my experience, but also that it was to some extent my experience. So it wasn't really my experience because that's not our parenting style, and that's not the kind of child that we have. And I guess, as Craig rightly noted, there's a reason why it's called the spectrum, because no two of them are alike. So it's almost impossible to create a movie about an autistic child and get all the parents to identify with the movie exactly. But of course, there are features that are that I did, I look at them and I did see something I could relate to them, I suppose. I don't overall in Uri, I don't really see much of my son Yuval, who will soon be 11. But there is also, again, some of it to some extent is part of my experience. For instance, many of the symptoms that we see, like the tantrums, right? The tantrums is a well-known thing of kids with autism. But of course, the extent and how long they happen, how often they happen, and how long they last, it varies widely among children with autism. Sometimes, I don't know how other parents who have kids like that feel, but sometimes when I see this, maybe it's I'm not supposed to do it or say it, but I say it at least to myself. When I see something that looks to me a lot more severe than what I have, I say, oh, you know, it could have been a lot worse. Or thank God that's not my situation. And there were moments in the movie that I said that to myself. I said, thank God that's not my situation. Yeah, I've seen the phenomenon, but thank God it's not my situation. Our diagnosis for Yuval came around the age of 3. Of course, there were many symptoms that were there before. And I think the movie itself, it hints at it, but doesn't do a very good job outlining some of the virtues of autism. We can talk, and I think, Sarah, you made good points about you know, some of the issues that children with autism have to deal with, communication issues, and sometimes also intellectual disabilities. That is not our case, but with our son, but it happens. I know it does happen, and perhaps that's also the case in the movie. It was hard for me to judge. It's a movie, and I'm not a professional, and I don't diagnose actors. But I think the movie misses out on some of the virtues. It hints at them, but it doesn't. It could have explored them a little better. For instance, the issue of the love that you get from this kind of child. Yes, you see it in the bond between the son and the father, but it's clear that the bond is there. But the love that you get, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I feel like, okay, I wake up every morning with my son coming to me, waking me up, hugging me, and telling me how much he loves me every single day. And I don't know too many parents who have 11-year-old kids who even care to come to their room and wake them up in the morning. It just doesn't, I mean, if it happens, good for you, but I don't think it's very common. And I get this every single morning. And I get it at night before he goes to sleep too. That's just, it's not because I ask him, do you love me? It comes from him. That's just part of how it is. The other issue is really, again, I thought maybe not explored enough in the movie, and Craig, you touched upon this too, the issue of facing and overcoming challenges, especially for children who are high functioning on the autism spectrum. In other words, these are really kids who can do anything. They really can do anything. If there is no intellectual disability, there is no limit to what they can achieve. They may need a lot more help to achieve the same thing that someone else wouldn't. But what you see in kids like that, and I see it in our son too, is how they face those challenges. They're sometimes very frustrating, and you know, and they really work hard to overcome them. And you know, our son would sometimes tell me, I'm going to get rid of this autism. Like he knows, like it's annoying, you know, I'm going to get rid of it. And I think that's something that, again, I'm not sure, that wasn't the topic of the movie. So for me, when I watch something like this, I look at it and I say, you know, high functioning kids, meaning high functioning autism, kids who have high functioning autism really can do anything. There's no limit. And you know, I haven't seen many movies that outline this. I know it does exist in popular culture here and there, but maybe not enough. And our society too maybe is not aware of it as well. The other thing that the movie hints at is the difficulty of all the issue of treatment. Not hints, I mean, the movie does explore this issue of finding the right treatment, the proper treatment, which is, of course, not treatment, I guess support, I should say. That's treatment is not the right word. Support system that is, it really does, it's a spectrum, as we said. So it's different for each student. It's different for each child. Some do better in school, some do better not being in that school. Sort of left behind in the movie is the issue of expenses. I don't know if $60,000 a year that you mentioned, Sarah, is, and I think because it's a spectrum, also the amount changes, right? And some of it, of course, is picked up by public school systems. It's not on the parents directly. But this is an issue that people don't often realize, that any parent, not just with autism, any parents who has a child with special need always faces this to some degree. In short, you can call it the money is never enough. and it's not. I'm not complaining here. Thankfully, we have what we need to support our child. But by saying the money is never enough, I mean that whenever like you get a pay raise or suddenly you have more money, it always goes into what more can I do that I haven't been doing. There is never a situation where you say, oh, finally I can take this $10,000 vacation. You usually don't, and maybe we should be saying this. I don't know. Maybe it's a question of priorities. The movie doesn't explore those things, and they stay sort of hidden there in the background. It's hinted, but and the last point I'll make is about the schools. That's in the movie. Again, it's a question of what kind of what's a good fit in terms of the support system. It's hard because schools don't do a very good job. And Sarah, you may be asking about this, so I don't want to jump the gun and get into a question that you might be asking. But I think in our society today, that's probably the big challenge, especially for those kids who really can do everything. And what are we doing in terms of a public system from elementary school all the way to college? Because kids like that, they go to college. Some of them do. And some of them, they succeed better in some colleges that do a better job than others at accommodating kids with autism. So there are all these big questions that when I watch a movie like this, I ask myself, and as Craig noted, there are a lot of these unknown things. Like, I don't know, my son is 11. I don't know what's going to happen in 7 years when he'll want to go to college. I don't know what's going to happen in 4 years when he'll have to be in high school. I don't know those things. You know, we do what we can, and we hope for the best possible results. I'm trying to be optimistic that there's more and more conversation about this and more debate. So by the time my son will be in college, there will be more and more colleges that know how to do this right, meaning taking someone who can really do everything and giving them, and it costs more. So the colleges have to be invested in this, but giving them the tools to succeed. So when they're done with college, they can get any job they want. And it is possible. Today, we have the tools to get this done. It's just a question of will and efforts and so on. So I guess I'll stop here, but I'm happy to continue this conversation.
Well, thank you so much. That was extremely insightful. I can't wait for people to be able to open up and ask questions. I also want everyone to know in the chat, we're having some great conversations, some great information. Patty is, explaining more about autism, about developing personal relationships. I encourage everyone to read her point of view. This is great. Talking about Yuri's relationship in the movie to his father being his primary security. I love that. I know there's a lot of comments just about loving the film. But I want to pass the first question. I've got a question from Sandra Brett, which I think is a great place to kind of kick off. So Sandra, I'm turning it over to you. Oop, I think you're muted.
You're muted, Sandra.
I have a dog, so I have to say muted. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear these different perspectives, not just on your children, get to know you a little bit better, but the perspectives on the movie. And there's been a lot of debate recently about actors that play characters that have a special need, or someone that's transgender, or any number of different kinds of character traits. So is that something that you thought about, both of you, while you were watching the movie? Was it something that you thought was an issue? Were you wondering whether he was played by an actor or someone that actually was on the autism spectrum?
I guess I don't want to go in first. I guess I'm so gullible when I watch movies, that I don't think about anything. I just sort of get into the movie, and I didn't realize that it was an actor. Of course, I didn't realize that Dustin Hoffman was an actor in Rain Man either. So, I mean, I guess, like I said, I just get into the movie, but I didn't feel like it was fair, that it wasn't real, which I guess is, a good statement about the job that the actor did, because it can't be easy to do that. And I thought that it looked natural. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The way I see it is, like in every profession, right? We professors, we teach in the classroom. The best of us are such that when the students leave the room after 50 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes, they don't feel that they spent even a minute in our classroom, right? Because it was so great. That is a sign that you're a good teacher. These guys are actors. If you're a good professional actor, you should be able to act anything. And so the good ones can get into a character, and the character doesn't have to be like them. Of course, if they are doing a good job, then there's the issue of, you know, they should go and meet with people like the people they're trying to act. And in the chat now, my colleague Joshua Shanes is saying exactly, I was about to say this, the Netflix show Atypical had exactly this controversy in the first season, that they had actors, but they did not have actors who were on the spectrum. And in season 2, they did bring actors who were on the spectrum into the show. And that did add quite a bit, I think. Although I think that the lead actor has done a really good job at getting into this. And I think, again, it's a question of, if that's your profession and you're really good at it, then you should be able to do it. And yeah, I don't really ask myself those questions when I watch things like that. I did when I watched Atypical. I have to admit, I was curious if the lead actor was on the spectrum. And I was happy to see in season 2 that they brought in people who actually were on the spectrum and wanted to be actors. And if anything, that season proved that you really can be what you want, even on the spectrum, because they were pretty nice and neat actors. They really did a good job. And so I think that's how I see it. You know, if you're good at what you do, you're good at what you do, and you can do anything. And that just, you know, I think about the story more than the actors themselves.
I just do want to say that I never received so many positive comments about a movie as I did with this one. You know, people really took the time to text me or email me and tell me that they thought, they were so glad that I showed this movie, and they thought that it was really well done. And, you know, sometimes I get a couple of comments, but people don't seek me out the way they did with this movie. So personally, if you didn't like the movie, I'd like to hear about that too, why that was. Sarah.
Sure. No, I think I know in the comments, there's a lot of people saying how much they love this film and giving other suggestions. So make sure you check it out. But I want to pass this over. Tom has a question. Tom, if you unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks. It's not a question. I wanted to kind of share another perspective on this, which was, yes, Uri was the director called him the hero of the movie. I identified a lot with the father, and I thought the movie was just as much about the father and his life and what you know. To me, he was a big part of the drama and the story, and how it was. You know, there was a time when I didn't see any way out of this thing for him. You know, when he got into the fight with the popsicle vendor on the beach, I thought, Mike, how much lower can this get? You know, there's no way out. And yet, you know, Uri, it did work out for him in that setting. I did have children not on the autism spectrum, kids with ADHD who, you know, had a hard time getting along with people and a tough time in school. So I really identified with that. And I'd like to know if anyone else who watched the movie had that reaction, that the father was a hero too. And I saw the movie a lot from his perspective. I just wondered if anyone else saw it that way too.
It's interesting. I'd like to comment on that because I can answer your comment on your question and comment on Sandra's question about somebody who didn't like the movie at the same time. My daughter Kim, who's on here, and I talked to my other daughter Shani, who's lives in Tel Aviv now, and about the movie, and she saw it yesterday. She didn't like it at all. She's the only one I heard that didn't like the movie. And why didn't she like it? Because she really, really didn't like the father. And I was a little bit taken aback because, you know, I kind of was able to relate to the father in a lot of ways. I thought that he was extremely patient. I thought that he was extremely creative in finding ways around problems, drawing the button on the wall and so forth, as it says in the chat. I thought he was extremely loving. I thought the loving relationship, as Yaron mentioned, was amazing. I thought he was incredibly accepting. But on the other hand, he was obsessive, smothering, short-sighted, and overprotective, and a little bit incompetent. So I mean, that it was sort of frustrating, but I thought that was interesting that she didn't like it because of him.
I first of all, the father is one of my favorite Israeli actors. I just want to say that Shai Avivi is just, I've loved this actor since I was a teenager, and he was much younger and did a lot of crazy things on Israeli television. And he really is just a great actor, and he gets into the character of the father, and he does a really, really good job. I think they really just chose someone who was the perfect fit for this. I don't know, this whole issue of I don't see being a father to a child like this as an act of heroism, and I understand that from the outside some people might see it this way. I just see it as, this is my job, this is my child, and my job is to get him to the best possible place that I can, and that's what I do. And if that means that the school doesn't have the tools to do exactly what they need to do, or the teachers don't know what exactly what to do, or they're unable to do it for whatever the reason may be, and I have to sit and spend a few hours a week doing math or reading comprehension or whatever it may be, then that's what I do. It is what it is. It's not, in fact, the way I see it is this: there's no heroism in what I do, and I don't see any heroism in what that father did. I see it the opposite, which is parents who clearly have children in this or other situations, who are told by professionals and school people and so on, look, there's really more you need to do, and they don't do it. They're the real losers, if you ask me. It's not that we are heroes, it's that they are neglecting their responsibility as parents by not doing it. And we are just the regular people who are doing what we are supposed to do. If you can't do this, if you don't want to do that, then don't become a father in the first place. That's how I see it.
Tom, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I didn't mean to suggest that I saw him as a hero. That's not what I meant at all. But if you look at the movie with his perspective,
yeah,
you learn things about him in the movie. He was a very talented guy. In fact, I think Uri might have inherited some of his artistic talent. That's sort of hinted at the end of the movie. He was an artistic guy who was very successful in his career, and in fact, had some renown. We know that he had the wing toasters and the flying toasters, painting and other graphic things that he was famous for. So I didn't say that he was a hero. I was only looking at it more through his own development and his growth, what he had given up. The marriage broke up. I'm sure the marriage broke up over their disagreements on how to raise this child, Uri. And I've seen that with people, that they as much as they want to stick together and be on the same page, very often it just tears families apart.
Absolutely.
And so I didn't mean to suggest that I saw him as the hero. I guess I did say that because the director called Uri the hero. Maybe really what he meant is the protagonist.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I saw I enjoyed, or I thought it was a very interesting aspect of the movie to look at it through what the father was going through and how he was trying to hold it together, what he had sacrificed, and how desperate he was. And, if in fact it worked out for Uri at the group home, and he had come back to his star pastas with the dad, I mean, how long was that going to be able to go on? it didn't seem like that was ever going to turn into anything that was going to be satisfying. Now you see the potential for Aharon to have a new life himself, because people cared about him. You could tell at that funeral, that shiva that he was at, people cared about him, and they felt for his plight. That's all I meant to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Sandra?
I do want to point out that both parents had quite a few issues unrelated to their child. And I kind of like the way the movie didn't really go into that until a little bit later. But then you kind of saw the backstory of their life before. He was this artist and he wouldn't let him do the toaster in red or whatever that thing was. And, the mother seemed a little bit cold, although we don't know that for sure. So I thought the movie did a good job of subtly bringing out that this wasn't all about the child.
Yeah.
Very good point. And yes, I'm loving these comments about how in tuned the father was and creative and such a good problem solver about avoiding the snails and the macaroni and the stars, all of that. It really did show. It's just a really well thought out, very, very beautifully done character. And I know that I keep thinking about that last scene about him letting his son go. And I just wanted to know if that scene resonated with anyone else, the way it really stuck with me and what that meant.
Yeah, I thought that I'm sorry, Joran, did you want to go first?
No, this is a better question for you, I think.
Well, I thought that scene was actually pretty incredible. I mean, that was really, the culmination of, that everybody's like, aha, and indeed, I kind of had an aha moment that I want to share with you guys last week, or even yesterday, I think it was. I was talking to Alon on Skype, and I asked him what he liked most about. This year has been very difficult on Nativ. Those kids have been in lockdown, I think, out of the period that they've been there, a significant percentage of the time. They haven't been able to discover Jerusalem. They haven't been able to see the archaeological sites that they wanted to see. They haven't been able to go on one tiyul since they arrived in September, because every time there's a holiday, the government locks down the country and then they're stuck in their rooms. And, so it's the worst of times and the best of times for a first-year college student to be on Nativ, because imagine it would be so much worse being home with your parents. But at any rate, the point was he finally got to go on a tiyul for Purim, and this was the first tiyul that they had. And I asked him, what did you like best about the tiyul? And he came back and he said, and this was, the group is a group of 60 kids and they get split. This was maybe a month ago, into two different groups, one in Tveria and one in Carmiel. And he said what he liked best was getting together with all of his friends again, that went to Tveria and being in one group, which I thought was really interesting, because when you see Alon in the pictures and when you see him in the groups, it's not like he's the most social character in the group. I mean, the opposite is true. He barely speaks. He doesn't go out and make friendships and so on and so forth. And yet the friendships and the relationships were the thing that was the most important to him. Not going to the Shvila Salat, which is someplace where you do a hike and you eat the whole way. Not going and touring the desert, not spending time in Jerusalem, not the Purim, the Megillah, the costumes, nothing. It was being with people and being with the friends, which I thought was an aha moment for me of how important these relationships are to him, such as they are to him. And I thought that was the aha moment in the movie too. I mean, the other kids didn't even have to interact with him, but it was the fact that they were all together and that they were doing these activities and that he was reaching more of his potential, as you said, Yaron. I thought that was an interesting parallel.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing this. I mean, I'm not at that stage yet of the letting go part. So it's hard for me to relate to it. I mean, it was a very emotional scene, of course, in the movie. I think that you're right. I mean, the social aspect is one of the two critical issues that really can make the big difference if children who are on the autism spectrum can really do anything in life or not. The social part is one of these one of two main issues. The other is to take the things that they're talented in and really develop them. And if I can take just 30 seconds to mention, because it suddenly came to me, the other thing that the movie really doesn't address very well is the issue that many children with autism have special abilities that we don't really see in neurotypical children. My other son, Yuval's brother, often calls them superpowers. He says Yuval has superpowers, like that he can see very, very tiny objects from far away that you can't see. He'll see a fly from the other side of the room. You just can't see it. We don't know how he sees it. Or he has perfect memory. He remembers everything that happened since he was 1 year old. Like everything. It's unbelievable. And so I think that the idea is that if we create the social setting, and if we create a setup that takes those things where they really have those, so to speak, superpowers, that they can do things that neurotypical humans cannot do, then they really can do anything.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I agree. I think that this particular story maybe didn't highlight that, but I think that that's so important, that it's a comprehensive whole child, and just like with all children, there are strengths, there are weaknesses, there are challenges. It's going to look a little different, but I think that highlighting how incredibly special these children are is so important. And I know that we're coming a little bit closer to the end, and I know I'm selfishly asking this question just as a JFS head. I receive a lot of calls from families who want to relocate to our city, and they ask about our resources for their children with ASD, with other disabilities, with other challenges. And it's always heartbreaking when I feel that we don't have a special home. We don't have a lot of these other facilities that would really be incredible. So I just wanted to talk and open that part up for discussion. Is our Jewish community inclusive? What do we need to do to make this a place for everybody?
Can I be the first to go on this one? Sure. Sorry, I just feel very strongly about this point, and I'm happy you brought it up. The short answer to your question is no. We're not doing what we can do or what we should be doing. First of all, in South Carolina in general, before we get to the Jewish community, we are behind. I'm not looking at other countries, Europe or Israel. We are behind many other US states. We lived in Indiana before we came here. And Indiana, we like to joke that the one good thing that Mike Pence did as governor of Indiana was that he really expanded services for people with disabilities to the extent that what you get over there is unbelievable. There's so much burden is taken off the parents because of it, and the quality of services is very high and so on, and we just don't have that here. And Indiana, of course, is not the only state that has that. So we don't have anything like that here. And in the Jewish community, we have even more work to do. And it's not, not to blame any particular individual. Our one Jewish school is not equipped to deal with this. And it's not that for lack of goodwill. The goodwill is there, but it takes more than just goodwill to be able to do it. And we have some work to do. I don't think it's a shame to say we have some work to do. By the way, the College of Charleston is, if we get to higher levels, at the level, of course, we don't have a Jewish high school in town. So, and I think the high schools, it depends which high school, some are a better fit than others. And I think that's important to note that. If people are looking specifically to be in the Jewish community, that's more challenging. But if they're willing to say, okay, we can do some Jewish things, but maybe the school will choose the thing that's the most fit. There are schools that do it better in Charleston than other schools. So it's worth exploring. That's what I've learned so far. When it comes to the college level, actually the College of Charleston is one of the best places that I've seen to deal with this. We have a very good support system for students like this, including helping them find those things that they're really good at. And even there, what I really like about it is that it's not, even there is recognition that there's still a lot of work to be done. That there's still, there are a lot of teachers in schools, but also professors who think, if a kid that has autism has to leave the room for a few minutes, it's an excuse. It's not an excuse. They may need those 5 minutes quiet time so they can actually do better in class. And so many times there are, there are those things that we have work to do in teaching and training. And our program, in fact, is going in the fall to do something with the Office of Disability Services at the College of Charleston to build more awareness for this on top of the great awareness that already exists. I've been in a few conversations about this already. Of course, as a parent, I'm very passionate about this myself, but it should be, if we already have a place that does it right, we should get it even better. In our Jewish community, it's not that great. I wish I could say that the one Jewish school we have here in town is the best fit for these kind of children, but it is not. And I can only hope that one day it will become. Yeah, I think right now the public school system, if anyone asks you, we have to be honest about this. We have a very nice, welcoming community. We have good institutions. We have very robust Jewish life here in town. We have to say this. But the schooling part is still the weak link, and the public schools do a better job. That's how it is.
Yeah, I guess if I could, before we go to Savannah, just mention a couple words about our experience. Alon also went to the local Jewish day school from all the EC programs up to 3rd grade. And the one thing that school did give was a lot of love. And that, again, that social aspect of being together with all the kids that he was born with and that he grew up with over those early years. And they were all really good to him. I don't think all classes at any school are the same, but he was blessed to have really great friends in that class. And that, I think, was really good for him. But again, he had a shadow the whole time, and they do not have the services. They can't, a small school, it's very difficult to be able to afford the kind of services that you have to really give these kids the support that they need. So we moved him after Rabbi Deluya left. There was even less support at the time, and they basically suggested that he might be better off in the public school, which was hard to take. And then when he did move to the public school, we've also been lucky. I think not only lucky, but it's all about these individual IEP programs and so forth. If you really work at it and you learn it and you understand it and you get the accommodations that you need, the public schools can provide a good education for him, even in Charleston, even in West Ashley High School. So the thing was that in middle school, I just want to tell one story that they were really, really big in that school against bullying, and that was he went through a really good middle school period, I think, of that he wasn't bullied. And in fact, one year the school had a basketball team, and they had different teams in the school, and they were all in the gym playing. And one time in one game, finally, Alon was given the ball, and he dribbled down to the other end, and he shot and he missed. And then the other kid gave it back to him, and he shot again and he missed. And one of the kids on the other team got the ball, gave it back to him. He shot again and he got it in, and the entire gym erupted in cheers. It was one of the most wild experiences. And so I think that, no matter what community you're in and no matter where you go, like you said before, Yaron, you put in the time and you put in the work and you make it the best you can. And with a little bit of luck, you can do fine. Yeah, glass half full.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know that we are hitting that 8 o'clock 1 hour mark. If anyone is interested in staying on for a few minutes extra to continue the conversation, we will be here, but I want to pass that over to Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Yes.
This is Patty Victor with the Matthew Reardon Center for Autism. This has been it's a great movie. It's tender, it's beautifully acted, it's beautifully scripted, it's very realistic. The one thing, and I'm sorry, I've written way too many comments in chat as I've listened to everybody, so I apologize for that. But the one thing I want to say is I think it's really, really important for everyone, all of us, to always remember that every person is a person first who happens to have autism. And so no matter what age, if you're a preschooler, you like to run and jump and spin and scream. If you're a school child, you like to move. If you're a teenager, you're moody. You're unpredictable. You don't know which side of the earth is up or down. And as you move into adulthood, we all have the same challenges, but autism exacerbates those things. So we just need to always be careful to not to separate the person from the autism, because we're all people first. We're all individual human beings who have desires for relationships and love and success and learning. And autism is just a challenge to those very human, natural things that are parts of each of us. Thank you so much for airing this movie. This has been fabulous.
Thank you very much for your participation. I know I learned a lot tonight, and I really am thankful to all the comments in the chat that gave me a different point of view on the movie. Thank you so much to Craig and to Yaron and to Sara for all their work and help in sifting through all the many issues. And I believe that we are now all unmuted. So again, if you'd like to stay and discuss for a few more minutes, we will be around here. I do hope that you will be with us for our next two movies. I did put the registration links in the chat, or you can email me, that should be in there too. Or you can go to our Facebook page. Again, thanks so much for participating, for watching the movie, and I look forward to seeing you at all our future movies and programs. So unless you want to stick around a little bit more and chat, I wish you a very good and safe good night.